that the moon is about a quarter the size of the Earth, that it receives all its light from the sun, and is thus only a reflector, and not a giver of light, that it attracts the body of the Earth, and thus causes the tides, that the stars are worlds and suns, some of them equal in importance to our own, sun himself, and others vastly superior, that these worlds, inhabited by sentient beings, are without numbers and occupy space, boundless in extent and illimitable in duration, the whole of these interlaced bodies being subject to, and supported by, universal gravitation, the foundation and the father of the whole fabric. Minds and theoretical speculators, the so-called science of modern astronomy furnishes a field unsurpassed in any science for the unrestrained license of the imagination, and the building up of a complicated conjuration of absurdities, such as to overawe the simpleton, and make him gape with wonder, to deceive even those who truly believe their assumptions to be facts, and to make men doubt divine revelation, with as little discrimination as they were formerly called upon to believe. If the reader will carefully follow, and weigh the evidence following chapters, he cannot fail to be delivered from the thraldom of popular credulity, and led to seek the truth for himself. Current science declares that the Earth was once shot off from the sun, a piece of molten rock which, by universal attraction, became larger, by indrafts from without, as the late R.A. Proctor assures us. This molten mass took 350 million years to cool down, for protoplasm to get a footing, which took millions of years by evolution and selection to produce a Darwinian ape. Evolution and selection allied to and combined with the survival of the fittest, again took many millions of years to evolve primeval man, many ages again elapsing before historical man was produced. There are 4 bodies, according to the late R.A. Proctor, which represent 4 stages of what we may term astronomical progression, as follow. The moon was once inhabited, but is now a chaotic mass. 2. The Earth is inhabited. It was once like the planet Jupiter. Earlier still it was like the sun, and will become like the moon now is. Jupiter was once like the sun. It is being prepared for inhabitants. When inhabited, it will be like the Earth. When its race as an inhabited world has been run, it will become like the moon. The sun will become like Jupiter, and another sun will have taken its place. Later it will become like the Earth, and will then be inhabited. Later still it will become chaotic like the moon, and so on for countless ages, in fact forever. What a grand conception, yea, rather what a grand perversion of the reasoning powers, and what stultification of common sense. What an abuse of precious gifts in order to satisfy a fertile imagination, and supply idle curiosity with something new in the domain of science. No one who reads the Bible but can see how these unfounded speculations are diametrically opposed to its plain teaching. The science of the 19th century and the science of the Bible are totally at variance. If the one be true, the other is necessarily false. Which is it? Let the evidence here placed before the reader answer the question. Let honest-minded men and women who read these pages learn the truth for themselves by practical investigation into the facts herein set forth, which we challenge the whole scientific world to successfully dispute. We court no favor and fear no foe, scientific or otherwise. All we ask is careful attention and practical investigation. We have no fear as to the logical conclusion which shall be arrived at. Assumptions. In order to account for natural phenomena in keeping with the assertions of the learned, many hypotheses have to be laid down, and many unfounded assumptions are absolutely necessary to support the unsound fabric of astronomical imagination. In Modern Science and Modern Thought by S. Lang, the following occurs on page 51. What is the material universe composed of? Ether, matter, and energy. Ether is not actually known to us by any test of which the senses can take cognizance, but is a sort of mathematical substance, which we are compelled to assume in order to account for the phenomena of light and heat. Whatever explanation may be furnished regarding light and heat on this basis must be discarded as utterly untrustworthy, because the premises are assumed. Once upon a time it was stated that the stars were motionless, but as soon as assumption was allowed to talk, the scene was changed, for, as Science Siftings informs us on volume 6, page 39, as soon as it was conjectured that the stars were subject to the law of gravitation, it was inferred that they were not motionless. Professor Huxley had to resort to assumption to account for the disappearance of ships at sea, although had he known the truth of the matter, or taken the trouble to inquire, his unwarranted assumptions would have been totally unnecessary. He says, "We assume the convexity of the water because we know of no other way to explain the appearance and disappearance of ships at sea. What learning! What profound wisdom! If we know of no other way, it is better to admit the fact and wait until we have found out some other way, to explain the difficulty if there is any. Knowledge is gained by practical investigation and experience, and has no need of the assistance of assumption to provide an excuse for ignorance. If water could be proved to be convex, there would be no need to assume it to be so. We should have many proofs and abundant evidence of the fact. But the fact that water has been proved to be level hundreds of times makes it necessary for those who refuse to believe proved facts which tell against their theory to resort to assumption to maintain their unreasoning position. And yet the same professor in his book Science and Culture says, the assertion which outstrips evidence is not only a blunder but a crime. The assertion, therefore, that water is convex against proof furnished many times over that it is level, is not only a blunder,